welcome. Thank you for joining us for our Fall Indie Social Night 2022. My name is Stephanie. I'm a marketing associate and an editor at Annick Press, and I will be your host this evening. If you're joining us for the first time, then welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here with us. We are 6 independent Canadian presses coming together to chat books and to thank our bookseller and librarian friends for all of your support, especially over the last couple of years. And if you've been with us before, then welcome back. We're so glad that you came and that you are continuing to support us. And we all miss our in-person events, but we're really happy that we're able to open this event up tonight to more booksellers and librarians across the entire continent on this lovely Tuesday evening. I'm looking at the sunset out of my kitchen window and it's just gorgeous. Why don't you let us know where you're from in the chat if you're just joining us? We do have a few more people coming in. My friend Emily is going to be popping the link to an ARC request form in the chat. So why don't you open that up, and as you're hearing about all of our fantastic books, you can check out all of the titles that interest you and you can submit the form at the end. When I was looking through the ARC request form this afternoon, I wanted everything, and there's a new hashtag in the chat I see, hashtag give me those ARCs. So good luck as you're looking through and saying hashtag give me those ARCs. So now that you know who I am and that I've rambled a little bit, I'm going to ask all of my friends here tonight to introduce themselves. So my friends in publishing, can you give us your name, your publishing house and its claim to fame, and what you do there? We're also heading into the most wonderful time of the year, not Christmas, but those really crisp, beautiful fall months. And I love nothing more than to curl up with a hot drink and cool book. So my friends, why don't you let me know your reading drink of choice so I can add it to my menu. And everybody else put your reading drink of choice in the chat too. So like I said, I'm Stephanie, a marketing associate and editor at Annick. I love anything vanilla. So I'm drinking a vanilla latte with an extra shot of espresso so I can stay up really late reading. And it pairs well with every single book. So why don't we hear from House of Anansi next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha Berry. I'm the Western Canada account manager at House of Anansi Press and Groundwood Books. I'll be presenting for Anansi tonight, and my wonderful colleague Catherine will be presenting for our sister publisher Groundwood. So House of Anansi was founded in Toronto in 1967 by Dennis Lee and David Godfrey. They had the intention initially of just publishing their own poetry, and then the press quickly expanded. They've published so many well-known authors like Michael Ondaatje, Northrop Frye, Erin Moray, Margaret Atwood, who worked here as an editor for a while. These days we publish literary and commercial fiction, nonfiction, cookbooks, and of course still poetry. For my fall drink, it doesn't matter how old I get, I just tend to go for a classic hot chocolate or maybe some tea and cookies, something that'll satisfy my sweet tooth.
Thanks, Taz. I hope you're putting marshmallows in your hot chocolate. Those really will.
Of course.
Perfect. Next, we're going to hear from Annick Press. Why don't you introduce yourself, my fellow colleague?
Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Sarah Dunn. I'm the publicity manager at Annick Press. Annick Press is an independent children's publisher based in Toronto that was founded in 1975 by Rick Wilkes and Anne Milliard. We publish all kinds of kids' books, perhaps best known for publishing a lot of Robert Munsch books, including my fave, The Paperback Princess. I have to admit, this warm drink question kind of stumped me. I'm just going to be boring and say that I'm going to go with a double Americano. I want the caffeine. That's all I care about.
Sometimes functionality is the most important thing. Thanks, Sarah. All right, next we're going to hear from Biblioasis.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a publicist at Biblioasis whose claim to fame is probably publishing Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman, though we say we publish the best in literary fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. We publish pretty dark books, and I think my beverage probably matches that. I usually just curl up with a cup of black coffee. Yeah.
Black coffee is my favorite way to have coffee, so I totally understand. Let's go over to Coach House next.
Hello, My name is James Lindsay. I'm the sales marketing coordinator and publicist at Coach House Books. We've been around since 1965 in Toronto, the same Coach House we originally founded in. We print most of our own books as well as books for other presses in Canada and the United States as well. Our big claim to fame is writers like Andre Alexis, who won the Giller Prize for 15 Dogs in his Quinkunk series, our Christian Book, who won one of the second annual Griffin Poetry Prize. And yeah, if I was curling up for a fall drink, I'd probably have a cup of green tea. I've been really into green tea lately, but steeped just a little too long, so you get that grassy funk in it. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that grassy bitterness to carry you through the fall. I like that. Thanks, James. All right, let's go over to ECW Press next.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. My name's Ali. I'm the senior publicist and trade marketing lead at ECW Press. Our claim to fame is that we have something literally for everyone. In our almost 50-year history, we've published thousands of books in just like the wildest variety you could ever imagine. If you are looking for a book about it, we probably published it. Our special niche is books on wrestling, like tons of professional wrestling books, music books, sports, but we also do absolutely wonderful fiction and super literary nonfiction. And in order to prove that, I highly recommend you join us every Friday for Something for Everyone Friday on Twitter. Send us the craziest thing you can think of and we will find a book for you. And my drink of choice is always Earl Grey tea when I'm reading. The warmth of the Earl Grey just like matches the warmth of my soul when I have a good book.
Does match the warmth of your soul, Elham. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Groundwood Books sharing with us.
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine, and I'm the sales associate at House Ansettled Press and Groundwood Books. I'll be representing the Groundwood side of the company tonight, which is based in Toronto. So Groundwood publishes children's books across all genres and ages and is very beloved across Canada and the US. You might recognize us for Deborah Ellis's books like the Breadwinner series, A Family is a Family is a Family by Sarah O'Leary, and Chin Lang's, or by Sarah O'Leary and Chin Lang, or for Sidewalk Flowers by Sydney Smith. And for my favorite fall drink, nothing warms me up while also giving me a nice big sugar rush like a chai tea latte. I also saw somebody dropped in the chat that they add a shot of espresso to theirs and called it a dirty chai, which I am definitely going to try now.
Inspiring. I can't wait to try a dirty chai. Thank you, everybody. Now you know who we are, where we are, what we do, and what drink you can buy us if you ever run into us at a coffee shop. So thanks for that. And now it's Tuesday. It's the best day of the week to talk about books, and you're here with us rather than watching the Bachelorette finale. And these Tuesdays are the best, especially in the fall. Emily is going to pop everything that you'll need in the chat tonight. Those are the links to the ARC request form and to the e-catalogs. So you can keep your eyes on the chat as we dive right into it. So for all of our publishers here, let's talk about these books. What debut author are you most excited about? And why don't we start with Catherine at Groundwood?
Okay. So this season, I'm really excited to have debut author Laurence Bédoin Masse on our list. She is the author of the YA novel Suck It In and Smile, which was originally published in French and which will be publishing in English on October 4th. So this book will resonate well with the YA audience, but it's also a really great crossover title as it really dives into some big themes such as body image, dating, and social media in a very funny and touching and very modern way. So this book is about Ellie, who is in her early to mid 20s. And Ellie is a hashtag influencer who is constantly monitoring her hundreds of thousands of followers as she motivates them to be the very best versions of themselves. She used to be a shy teenager, but now she's one of the most popular influencers in the country, together with her kind of famous boyfriend, Samuel Van Ass. She has hashtag made it. But Ellie's life isn't as flawless as it seems online. She's obsessed with her weight, she's falling for another man, and she is struggling with her family's disdain for her career choice. And on top of that, she's forced to collaborate with another influencer who she really can't stand. She realizes that her life isn't as flawless as she's made it appear on social media, and she finally has to confront a very scary thought. What if by trying to appear as someone she's always wanted to be, she's lost herself along the way? The book is very clever and a brave exploration of our obsession with appearances and the sort of hypocrisies related to contriving the image of living your best life online. It also has a really great cover, a great crossover cover, and that's Suck It In and Smile.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a gorgeous cover and it sounds like such a fantastic book. It's on my list, as I've already said tonight. Let's head over to ECW and hear about your debut author.
Thank you. So I'm cheating a little bit with this question. And the title that I wanted to talk about is actually coming out in spring 23. And we don't have a copy yet or a cover, so I just like dropped a picture of it in the chat if everyone wants to go see. This book is called We Meant Well by Aram Shazia Hassan, and it's coming out in April, but we will have ARCs very, very soon, and we're doing a nice big indie next push for it, so I really hope that you'll read it. This is an incredible debut that wrestles with some big ethical questions about power and privilege, and specifically what it means to be charitable. The novel follows Maya, who is called from her home in LA in the middle of the night. She works for a global charity that runs children's orphanages and programs in the fictional village of Lakani in Africa. And one day, one of her colleagues is accused by a village girl of sexual assault. And so Maya's woken up in the middle of the night and she's forced to fly over to kind of manage the crisis. When she gets there, she finds that she's really caught in between these two worlds, the world of the charity and like the people that she's meant to serve, as well as the company that she works for. At the same time, she's also really torn between the freedom that she feels, the freedom and the power that she feels in the village against the constrictions of her life back home, trying to be like the perfect wife. Ultimately, what she's really struggling with is the contradiction of all aid workers, which is that seemingly they're in these places to help people, the people who are the most deprived, but ultimately they're also there to govern as foreign workers. The really fascinating thing about this novel is that a lot of it is born out of Aram's own experiences. She is currently working as a sustainable development consultant with various UN agencies. She's done a lot of work with the UN, and so not necessarily the plot, but sort of those big questions that Maya struggles with, and also like the sort of, gosh, I forgot the word all of a sudden. Like, she's trying to break down the type of person that does this kind of work, because it is incredibly difficult work to uproot your entire life and move into these really difficult places and do this. And it's so powerful. It's so thought-provoking. I'm in the middle of it right now, and I'm always underlining passages, and I can't wait to talk about it with everyone. So please read it and email me so we can talk about it together. That's We Meant Well by Aram Shazia Hassan.
Thanks, Elham. It does sound fascinating, and I can't wait to read it and start a little book club with you. So thank you. Next, let's hear from Anansi and your debut author.
So the debut author I want to tell everyone about is Saeed Tibi. He's from Toronto, and his short story collection is called Her First Palestinian, and it just published in August. Saeed Tibi was born in Kuwait to Palestinian parents, so he's a double exile. Kuwait was a country that took in a large portion of Palestinian refugees in the 40s after the establishment of the State of Israel. But then when Iraq invaded Kuwait in the 90s, that population was thrown into disarray again. The vast majority of Palestinians in Kuwait had to flee again. So that is how Saeed ended up in Canada. But the most important thing to know about Saeed Tibi is that he's an incredibly talented writer. In fact, Saeed first came to our attention when he was shortlisted for the CBC Short Story Prize. So this collection is 9 stories altogether, and they depict Palestinians in the Canadian diaspora. The stories touch on themes of alienation, toxic masculinity, colonization, cultural appropriation, and throughout the collection, there's also some discussion of Palestinian liberation and sovereignty. I think this collection is just really well timed. In the past couple of years, we're seeing attitudes begin to shift, and change towards Palestine. And there's this increased online activism, this more intersectional sort of approach to pro-Palestinian support as well. And we still don't hear enough from that perspective. So this is a very exciting author and new collection.
Thanks, Tass. This is honestly one of the best books I've read all year, so you have to pick it up. It's fantastic. Why don't we hear from Annick next? What have you got for us for debut authors?
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm really excited to tell everyone about My Name is Singh. This is a debut for both author Kuljinder Kaur Brar and illustrator Samrath Kaur. So this picture book is for ages 4 to 7, and it was released on August 16th. It is the story of a young boy named Sajin who loves his name. He absolutely adores it. Until his first day of school. He's so excited to go and to meet his new classmates, but things take a turn when the teacher mispronounces his name as Sajin, and he's not sure how or if he should correct her. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that he, as a young kid, thinks she's the teacher, she must know what's right. Maybe this is how my name is said outside of my home. So after living or trying to live with the different version of his name for a while and some thoughtful conversations with his family about the meaning behind it and how that changes when it's mispronounced, he realizes the importance of reclaiming his name and embracing his identity. I think this book is relatable for kids from various backgrounds whose names have been mispronounced, but it also demonstrates, as I said, that adults make mistakes too. And I think that's a really important lesson for a lot of children.
Thanks, Sarah. It is a really important book and also great for back to school, it sounds like. So thanks for sharing that with us. All right, our last debut author hearing of tonight. Let's hear from Coach House Books.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have a great debut coming out next month, this fall, Pacifique by Sarah L. Taggart. This book is very exciting because it is the first acquisition of Amanda Leduc for us. You, of course, know Amanda from Disfigured, Fairy Tales and Making Spaces, the book about fairy tales and disability. Amanda is now editing for us and acquiring, and this is her first acquisition. Sarah is a Canadian writer living in New Zealand. This is a phenomenal book about a young woman named Tia who's living in Victoria, British Columbia. She meets a woman called Pacifique, and they enjoy 5 wild days and nights together in the city. They find secret clubs. They go for midnight bike rides. They spend every hour of the day with each other. But on day 5 on a bike ride, Tia's in a car accident. And she wakes up in the hospital and no one believes her that Pacifique is real. No one's ever seen Pacifique. Her roommates don't know what she's talking about, and she is forced into a psych ward. Sarah herself is a survivor of forced psychiatric internment. So this book comes from personal experience. But in the hospital, Tia meets a young man, a schizophrenic man named Andrew. They develop a relationship, but Andrew's about to be discharged. So this kind of becomes this moment of what's going to happen, the relationship between the two of them and where it's going to go. It's a beautiful book about madness and what it's like to be a patient under forced psychiatric care. We have amazing blurbs already from Alicia Elliott and Deborah Willis for this. Sarah, a phenomenal writer. She's been published in the Malahat Review, Journey Story Prize, and Grain Magazine, as well as many other places. There's already a hot buzz about this going on. Cannot recommend it enough. Very plot-based. This is an adult novel. However, if you know a mature teen, there is some YA crossover that could be good here. Pacifique by Sarah L. Taggart, out next month.
Awesome. Thank you. It sounds fantastic. I mean, all of these titles sound fantastic, and I love supporting first-time creators. So these are definitely getting picked up the next time I'm at the bookstore. Thank you all so much. But now we have an extra special treat for you all, a video from ECW author Dr. Dave Williams about his forthcoming book, Why Am I Taller? Oh, I think we're missing sound there.
Excited that the book I co-authored with Elizabeth Howell on how the human body adapts to space will soon be available in bookstores and online. Have you ever wondered about the similarities between a cockroach and a spacewalker? Or perhaps why astronauts use hardeners for their fingernails? What is the puffy-faced bird leg syndrome? Why am I taller? What happens to an astronaut's body in space? We'll answer all of those questions and more. As a physician astronaut, I had the unique opportunity to monitor all the changes that took place in my body during 2 space flights and 3 spacewalks that I did helping build the International Space Station. On Earth, I'm around 6 feet 1 inch tall, or about 185 centimeters. In space, I was 6 feet 2 3/4 of an inch, a pretty impressive change that took place in the first few days without gravity. If you're interested in what happens to humans traveling in space, this book is a must-read. We hope you pre-order a copy today and enjoy learning about life without gravity.
I'm totally interested in hearing about how astronauts change in space. So thank you to our friends at ECW for that great video. Why Am I Taller publishes on November 1st. So make sure you pre-order your copies now. All right, so my partner loves wrestling, and I've seen it in the chat that other people do too, but his nephew also loves wrestling because he has to do everything that Robert does. My own nieces have started loving wrestling too, and I'm as big of a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan as the next person here, but I'm also going to be the aunt to shove books into their hands at any given moment while I drink my hot autumnal beverage. So, for my friends in children's publishing, can you share with us an illustrator that you are particularly excited to have on your list this season? Let's start with Annick, shall we?
Thanks, Stephanie. We are thrilled at Annick to be publishing The Wolf Suit this fall. It's a debut graphic novel for ages 6 to 11, and it's written and illustrated by Sid Sharp. It comes out on October 4th. The story features a sheep named Bellwether Rigwelter who is tired of feeling afraid of the predators in the forest. So he comes up with what he feels is a brilliant solution. He'll sew a wolf suit and keep himself safe by blending in. The disguise works perfectly until he doesn't. However, it seems he's not the only one who has been hiding the truth about himself, and he makes new friends who have also decided they are ready to come out of their costumes and show their true selves. With humor, darkness, and insight, Sharp turns the idiom wolf in sheep's clothing on its head. Sid meticulously hand-painted each page of the stunning book and also created a special font for it. And I think that attention to detail really stands out. The Wolf Suit is a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection. And again, we're just absolutely delighted to have this book on our list for fall.
This is a perfect choice. Thank you, Sarah. Groundwood, what do you have for young wrestling fans so they'll actually read a book now?
So we have, and I love this question because this season I've been taking every opportunity to spotlight this book. So I was going to talk about Iceberg. There it is. Okay. So this is a book you really have to hold in your hands and look at closely because the illustrations and the oversized format are just as impactful as the words. It's by Australian duo Claire Saxby and Jess Ratcliffe. The author, Claire Saxby, is both a podiatrist and a multi-award-winning author, and the illustrator, Jess Ratcliffe, uses her illustration talents to create a variety of things, including picture books, paintings, prints, pins, and cards. She's very talented. She's won some significant awards for her illustrations, including 2 notable Picture Book of the Year awards in Australia. So this nonfiction story follows an iceberg's life cycle through the seasons as it shears from a glacier and then moves slowly through its journey in the Antarctic Ocean. As the seasons pass, we see the changes that occur to the iceberg and the different company that the iceberg keeps, from penguins to krill to humpback whales, some of which you'll see in the illustration right now. So the book ends with an author's note explaining the effects of climate change on the Arctic and Antarctic regions, and it also has a map and glossary in the end. The text is very poetic and the illustrations are stunning. Whenever we take this to conferences and festivals, it makes people stop and feel the need to pick it up and flip through. It really is a beautiful, beautiful book.
This is gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing this tonight, Catherine. I love it. Thank you, Sarah, as well. These are just fantastic titles, and I know that these are going to get these young kids into reading. So thank you so much. Now, when we last gathered for a Spring Indie Social, I asked you all for recommendations for my book club, and you did not disappoint. We read one of them as a group and let you guess which one, but everyone ended up reading them all individually and loved them. So it was like I was the queen of book club forever. And we're coming up to my turn again, and so I have to top that. Like, I have to be the best forever. So what book club pick do you have as we're heading into the cooler months? And why don't we start with Biblioasis?
Thanks, Stephanie. Our book club pick was easy. It's Confessions with Keith by Pauline Holdstock, which is paperback fiction that comes out next Tuesday, September 20th. I was actually the first thing I thought of when I read this book is how much I wanted to talk about it with other people. When I think of a great book club book, I guess the first thing I think of is laughter, of a book that can be challenging and moving, but also ultimately always joyful. This one does all of that while also profoundly raging against the patriarchy and the way it shapes motherhood. Set in Vancouver, Confessions with Keith is a series of journal entries detailing the miseries of midlife centered on our heroine, Vita Glass, a mother of 4 undisciplined children in the midst of the messiest years of her life. These years feature a shambling house, a lackluster writing career, centering for the most part on her vegetable erotica for which she is poorly paid, and now suddenly a divorce. There is no script for this, she writes in one of her journal entries. It's not a glamorous separation, no story of sudden awakening into selfhood. It is a bumbling, hilarious, and often humiliating account of abandonment. This is a deeply and morbidly funny book with a literary bent, but it's not defined by its literariness. It's for readers of humorists like Lucy Ellman, yes, but also Rachel Cusk and Elena Ferrante. Oh, and it also contains the cringiest, and by that I mean most accurate narration of a poetry reading that I've ever read. It's deft and accessible and uplifting, and for that reason, we think it would make an excellent conversation starter across a wide range of readers. Confessions with Keith, out next week.
That sounds perfect. Thank you, Emily. I see in the chat too that everybody else is saying it's perfect. So that is a high contender. Thank you so much. Let's hear from ECW next. What do you have for my engineering book club?
So my recommendation for your engineering book club is Same Ground, Chasing Family Down the California Gold Rush Trail by Russell Wingurski. This is also a very strong contender for like best cover because it's just like every time you look at it, there's something different. You find something new. If you don't know Russell, he is an incredible multi-award winning author who has been twice nominated for the Scotiabank Giller Prize. He's won the Rogers Nonfiction Book Award. These are some of the biggest awards in Canada. In his memoir, this is a tale of parallel journeys separated by more than 200 years. After discovering the diary of his great-great-grandfather that was written while he was traveling on foot from Wisconsin to California during the gold rush, Russell decides that he is going to recreate that journey himself. This time, though, the goal is not gold, it's family and a sense of belonging. Russell is actually originally from the US. He was born there, but raised in Canada. And having kind of been uprooted and lost a lot of those connections to his family, he's kind of going back in order to find some sense of self. Forward Reviews called it an American travel odyssey that chronicles the birth and demise of the American dream in the West. And I think that really perfectly encapsulates what's so amazing about this book. It's profound and even hilarious sometimes, but at the same time, Same Ground offers a lot of food for thought about some deep and important social issues like human connection, poverty, immigration, and the emptying out of Middle America. because he's traveling through states like Iowa and Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah, and finds himself a lot of the time in these dead and dying towns. It's one of the interesting things that the book does is kind of juxtapose it includes a lot of passages directly taken from his great-great-grandfather's diary. And in those, of course, this was a very problematic time in terms of relations between settlers and Indigenous people. But you're seeing Indigenous people fighting for their right to stay on their land. And then you move forward 200 years and you're seeing the people who had settled there now being forced to move out and being replaced by new immigrants. It's this really interesting sort of ongoing story about place and displacement. For book clubs that are looking for heartfelt family sagas or politically and socially conscious books that still have like a really strong narrative drive, this is absolutely perfect. This is Russell Wengerski's Same Ground that's coming out on September 27th.
Thank you, Elham. I'm a sucker for family and travel and the California Gold Rush for some reason. So thank you. That's actually perfect. Coach House, what do you have for us, James?
I am very excited to talk about this book. I actually recommended it as our fall preview back in the spring, but I'm here with it again. This is The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Meyer, which was just last week longlisted for the Giller Fiction Prize in Canada. It's our big fiction prize alongside Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu, which we also published. This is a phenomenal book. It's the third novel we've done for Suzette alongside Rhinoceros, which was also longlisted for the Giller, and Dr. Edith Faden and the Hares of Crawley Hall, which is a title I'll always have to look at in order to say. We have had incredible pre-pub press for this already, including a starred review in Publishers Weekly. So the year is 1929, and our character, our narrator, Baxter, is a sleeping car porter. He's a Pullman porter, so all train porters in the early 20th century were black men who worked for the Pullman company. He is traveling from Toronto to Vancouver, but he's already feeling very distracted because Baxter's lover, he's gay, has disappeared, and he can't find him anywhere. So he's thinking about this. There has been someone at Union Station who was just arrested for homosexual behavior. He's very scared about this, but he has no time because the train's getting going. Suzette did a ton of historical research for this, including actually visiting old sleeping car trains, which are really, really cramped. And there's a lot of detail in here about sort of the size and scale of everything, and the smells you would feel, and the heat and the cold. There was not a lot of protection for this pretty glamorous way of traveling at the time. Everything's going pretty good. I mean, that said, Baxter's not sleeping. He's expected to be up 24 hours a day, so he's starting to hallucinate. He's also obsessed with science fiction, so that's starting to creep into his hallucinations. And there might actually be a ghost, but again, he doesn't have time for that because he's in too high demand. He's doing childcare, he's delivering meals, he's helping drunks find their cots, he's doing everything. The porters trade off. They take about 15 to 20-minute naps. That's most as they get. Everyone's okay though. This is like they've done this trip several times, and then they get stranded in the Rocky Mountains in a landslide. The passengers obviously are building in tension more and more as days progress. They start holding seances to contact the ghosts. They are wandering on the mountain. There's bears there. This is an incredible book. It builds in tension so much. What Baxter is seeing, whether it's a hallucination or a memory or something just here, the way Suzette has written it in her gorgeous prose, it's hard to distinguish. Cannot recommend this book enough. We're so happy about it. It's coming at the end of the month, September 27th, The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Meyer.
I love Suzette Meyer and have had The Sleeping Car Porter on my to-read list since the Spring Indie Social. So
thank you, Steph.
I'm so excited. Thank you, James. All right, let's hear from Anansi. What do you have for book club?
So my book club pick is a great novel called Goddess, and I sadly don't have an ARC yet. I can't wait for it though. So it is, the cover's in the catalog. It looks great, and I'm going to pop a link in the chat as well if anyone wants to view it there. So this is by Deborah Hemming, who's a Nova Scotia author, and it's publishing in January. It's upmarket commercial fiction. There's a thriller aspect to it. Our protagonist is this young up-and-coming writer named Agnes, who just has everything going for her. Her debut novel is a smash hit. She's dating a very handsome filmmaker named Jack Verity, and she's been invited on a wellness retreat to this remote Greek island by her boyfriend's ex-wife, who's named Gia Stone. And Gia is a famous actress turned wellness guru, and her popular lifestyle brand called Goddess is known for promoting really controversial therapies and expensive beauty tools, all in the name of self-care. So you're probably already thinking it's basically Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. And when Agnes meets Gia, she finds herself very inexplicably drawn to her. But then at this wellness retreat, she starts witnessing strange happenings and is shocked to find that all the guests seem to be falling one by one under the spell of this enchanting leader. I don't want to spoil the ending, but I will say there ends up being a lot of great Greek mythology woven into the mystery if you're into that. It's a very fun read. It's about wellness and imposter syndrome, celebrity influence, and worship. It's great for fans of Mona Awad's Bunny or Leanne Moriarty's 9 Perfect Strangers. If you are in the US, we're doing an Indie Next Push for this one. And of course, no matter where you're located, you can request a copy in the ARC request form as well.
That is perfect. Mystery check, thriller check, crazy celebrities check. So thank you, Tass. And you are all lifesavers. Like, I'm definitely going to maintain my spot as queen of engineering book club. So thank you so much. I will make sure that my engineering friends remain literate and up to date on the best books. Now we have another great video to share with you all this evening from our friends at Groundwood and Geraldo Valerio.
Hello, I'm Geraldo Valerio. I'm an author and illustrator, and today I'm here to show you my new image book, Night Runners, published by Groundwood Books. Night Runners is the story of a stag running through the night. It's a very dark night. But the stag is able to run through the darkness because it's being guided by a circle of bright stars up in the sky. But then the stars in the sky, they started to fade. And darkness comes to the forest. And the stag is being followed by other creatures of the night. The stag is very scared. What is going to happen? There will be lots of surprises in Night Runners. This is a book about adventure, friendship, and joy. Lots of joy.
Don't you love a wordless picture book? Like, that looks fantastic. Thank you, Groundwood, for sharing that with us this evening. Night Runners is available on October 4th, so make sure you pre-order that one. Now, I'll admit it, I'm a little, I do judge a book by its cover. I'll admit it, I have to, but we all do, I think. We just don't all want to admit it. So I'm going to ask all my friends here tonight, what is your favorite book cover of the season that will make sure that even the most judgmental shoppers like myself pick it up? So let's hear from Annick first. What's your gorgeous book?
So my favorite cover of the season is for A House Unsettled, which is a debut YA horror novel from Montreal-based writer Trin Delaney, and it comes out on October 11th. I don't have a finished copy here, and I'm not going to hold up the ARC because it had an old cover, and I think this one is so much better. In the book, 17-year-old Asha is ready for the fresh start her mom Tracy promises when they move to a Victorian mansion, passed down from Tracy's Aunt Aggie, in a small town far away from the city Asha calls home, and far away from the painful reminders of her dad's recent incarceration. While the immediate connection she makes with her new neighbor Cole seems like a sign that this fresh start is possible, soon Asha's optimism is overshadowed by strange and increasingly terrifying occurrences within the crumbling old house's walls. Footsteps shaking the halls, a persistent chill, cold hands around her neck in the middle of the night. The escalating tension with her mother following the arrival of her toxic husband, increasingly strange apparitions in the house, and revelations about past entanglements between Cole and Asha's families start to make Asha question not only the possibility that things might be better here, but also whether she, Tracy, and even Cole could be in danger. I don't mind telling you that sometimes it takes a while to get the right cover for a book, and after numerous drafts, we feel like we finally have one that suits this compelling emotional ghost story that also explores the concept of haunting as it relates to intergenerational trauma, queerness, race, and much more.
I'm glad there was a wait for this cover because it is perfect. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing A House Unsettled with us. What cover does Anansi have to share?
So if we could flip over to this one, this is a very simple cover, but I find it just so attention grabbing. I think it really perfectly conveys the playfulness and the wit of the book while still feeling like nonfiction. It's called Laughing with the Trickster on Sex, Death, and Accordions, possibly my favorite subtitle I've ever gotten to sell. This is by Thompson Highway. It is this year's CBC Massey Lectures, if you're familiar with those, and it's publishing later this month. Thompson Highway is a member of the Barren Lands First Nation. He lives in Gatineau, Quebec. He is one of Canada's most acclaimed Indigenous writers. His memoir, Permanent Astonishment, won the Writers' Trust last year, and he was made an Officer of the Order of Canada. And these lectures are a comparative analysis of Cree, Christian, and classical mythologies, revealing how they've given substance to Western thought, life, and culture. And the 5 sections explore themes of language, creation, sex and gender, humor, and death. Thompson himself as a person is very trickstery. He's sort of the king of cheesy jokes, and this book is very funny. It's tongue-in-cheek, ironic. It's also fascinating. If you do want to listen to Thompson himself deliver the lectures, they will be broadcasting on the CBC, on CBC Ideas in November.
Thank you, Tass. It is such a arresting cover. Every time I see it, I just want to read it immediately. So thank you for that. Let's go with Coach House. What title do you have for us with a great cover?
Hello, yeah, let's wait for it to come up here. Yes, this is a mouthful, but a great cover. What we talk about when we talk about dumplings. This is an anthology of food writing that we put together about dumplings. If all the food cultures in the world have one thing in common, it might be dumplings. And this is beautifully illustrated, both the cover and throughout, by Megan Lim, who's a Brampton-based illustrator. This is a collection of personal essays about dumplings, but also recipes about dumplings as well. There are some well-known Coach House contributors here, including Andre Alexis from 15 Dogs, Terry King of Rebound, Cheryl Thompson from Uncle, Miles Maris from Indigenous Toronto, but a lot of other really well-known contributors too. On Karen Lim, the food writer from the Toronto Star, Chatelaine deputy editor Chantal Barugza, and Dominica Marchetti, the cookbook author. It's dumplings. What can I say? This is everything from Andre Alexis writing about the Trinidadian lizard dumplings, which is a weird, real thing, gyzos, matzo balls, ravioli. I'm just going to name some dumplings for a bit. We got dim sum in here. Did I say ravioli? We're counting it as a dumpling. Jamaican patties. It's all in here. There's an incredible amount of food writing in here. We don't do a lot of books, but food books, but this one is a keeper. All the dumplings are illustrated by Megan, as well as some fantastical dumpling landscapes. So I'll give you a little taste throughout. Good for anyone who's into food writing, but also just good for people who are hungry at the moment. What we talk about when we talk about dumplings.
I am hungry and I love food writing and I love this cover. So great choice, James. Thank you so much. Our next beautiful cover is going to come from Groundwood Books. What do you have for us?
So one of my favorite covers this season is the cover for The Prisoner and the Writer by Heather Camlett and Sophie Casson. So this story is an illustrated middle grade treatment of the Dreyfus Affair, told from the perspective of Jewish Army Captain Alfred Dreyfus and writer Emile Zola. So you'll see the cover is illustrated from the perspective of Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish Army captain who was accused of betraying France in 1895 and exiled to a prison on Devil's Island. You'll also see on the cover, he's looking out between the bars of his prison cell at the waves crashing up on shore. It's a very haunting and beautiful image, and there are full page illustrations that continue throughout the book that are just as beautiful. When the finished copies first arrived in the office, one of my coworkers and I were literally mesmerized by it, just flipping through, because we didn't realize how much of an impact the illustrations would also have on the story. So in the story, Emile Zola, who resides 7,000 miles away, is convinced of Dreyfus's innocence and feels that it is his duty to help him. He pens the famous letter J'accuse, explaining that Alfred was blamed, charged, tried, and convicted only because he is Jewish. It's written and illustrated with such a unique style that bends graphic novel, nonfiction, and poetry. And the magic really does start from the cover. So this true story publishes in time for the 125th anniversary of J'accuse and includes an author's note and further historical context. It acts as a nice reminder that a person committed to truth and justice and equality has a responsibility to themselves and to others to stand up and speak out against prejudice. That is The Prisoner and the Writer.
Thank you, Catherine. It's important and beautiful and just a fantastic title. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Our next cover is going to be coming from Biblioasis. What do you have for us, Emily?
I have the art here too. This is another easy one, Ordinary Wonder Tales by Emily Urquhart, which is an essay collection pubbing on, I think, November 1st. The cover of this book is as whimsical and soft and beautiful as the collection of essays on folklore inside. Represented by swaying trees, the playful typeface, the subdued pink light, and the freshly trodden earth, these essays weave folklore into explorations of daily life. There are essays on death, birth, but also on cottagers and plague and radioactivity. Urquhart has an eye for what she calls ordinary wonder tales. She draws them out of paintings and pregnancies, summer homes and midnight alleys, traveling in these essays from Newfoundland to Italy to the UK and back to Ontario. Her prose is as nimble and spare as this illustration and as inviting. However far Urquhart travels into a digression or a dream, the reader is there alongside her, trotting with her myths and her deep knowledge of folklore, which she studied extensively at Memorial University in Newfoundland. The cover is by Byron Edenschweiler, who perfectly captures the way that grief and joy are balanced in this book. The front cover is optimistic, bright, opening onto a glen, while the back cover, which I'll show you guys, is shadowy and forested, representing the darker subject matter that lurks beneath some of these essays and the folklore itself. That's Ordinary Wonder Tales, coming out in November.
It is a gorgeous cover and the perfect fall vibes. Thank you, Emily, for sharing that. All right, our last but certainly not least, and another gorgeous cover is going to come from ECW. What do you have for us, Alhan?
I have a novel, As Little as Nothing, by author and editor Pamela Malloy. This is historical fiction seen through a feminist lens, set against the backdrop of the eve of World War II, with ratcheting up tensions. A plane crash outside an English village brings together the lives of 4 people. One is Miriam, an aspiring pilot who decides that she wants to learn how to fly as a way to escape her life after she suffers another miscarriage. Audrey is a reproductive rights activist who has decided to turn her back on society, while her nephew Frank, who is teaching Miriam how to fly, finds himself growing more and more alienated against his will. And the last is Peter, the crashed pilot, who Frank also finds himself drawn to. As Little as Nothing explores early feminism and reproductive rights movements, and I think it fits in really nicely with this growing trend of historical women's fiction that kind of reframes history through a feminist perspective, not necessarily in a way where it's rewriting or changing historical events, but pulling back the curtain on strides that women were always making. So for example, Audrey being a reproductive rights activist, that is obviously incredibly timely right now, but it shows that this isn't a new fight. This is a fight that women have been battling for a very, very long time. I also love just like, the thing I love about the cover is that you can see immediately what it is. if you love books by Paula McLean, things like The Paris Wife, or like Kate Quinn's books, Ariel Lawhon, you walk into a bookstore, you see this book, you know what you're gonna get. You pick it up, and it's perfect for those kind of fans. So yeah, that's As Little as Nothing by Pamela Malloy.
Thank you, Elham. It's a really inviting cover, even though there's, you know what you're getting. So thank you. These are all just gorgeous and fascinating, and that's the best combo for a book, especially when you're judging them by their cover. So thank you, everybody. But my friends, we are coming to the end of our time together tonight, and time really does fly when you're talking about books, doesn't it? So I think we have time for one more really quick question, and I think this one will ring true for all of us. Just because we work in books, our friends think that we can recommend the best titles to them all of the time. And even though it's totally true, obviously with the book clubs, we got the great books, I'm wondering what you're recommending to your friends from this season. So let's start with Coach House. What are you recommending?
Thank you. I wanted to recommend a book of poetry. I like recommending one every time. And this one actually happens to be out today, just Test Piece by Shrita Warrener. This is a beautiful, fantastic collection from Vancouver-based poet Shrita. The poems in here are conversations with art and also visual poems themselves that combine text and photography. We have fantastic blurbs from this on this from Wa Thien and Marina Roy already. This book started as Shrita trying to write self-portraits, but she ended up engaging with a lot of female artists like Eva Hess, Ruth Asawa, and Agnes Martin. So it's a group of Aphraxis poems and lyrical poems about these artists and their art themselves. Shrita's previous collections include Hard Feelings and Floating in Everything. Her work has been an event, Fiddlehead Grain, Hazlitt, and The Believer. She's won the Puritans Thomas Morton Memorial Prize for Poetry, and she's been selected for CBC's Poetry Prize, as well as included in the Next Wave anthology. She is all over the place. She's a real poet's poet. If you happen to be in Toronto, we're having the launch on September 23rd at Coach House Books on ADBP Nickel Name with Derek Below. If you want to drop by and say hi to Shrita herself, we're also working on a Vancouver launch for this. These are beautiful, elegant poems, very accessible, very easy to read, a good first book of poetry, but also good for your friends who are artists, for your friends who are just poetry fans. Test Piece, Shrita Warrener.
Thank you, James. Easy to recommend to everybody, it sounds like. That's perfect. Annick, what are you recommending to your friends this season?
Okay, so people who know me well know that I don't think billionaires should exist and believe it's unconscionable that some people have more money than they can spend in several lifetimes while we allow other people to die in the streets. So that's an issue that I get riled up about. And so I will say sometimes I don't even know where to start, though, when I'm trying to explain why this matters so much to others. So for that reason, I'm going to share this book, More Than Money. In More Than Money, authors Hadley Dyer and Mitchell Bernard and illustrator Paul Gill make a potentially overwhelming subject easy to understand, breaking down why the rich seem to be getting richer and richer while everyone else struggles and how that affects every aspect of our lives, where we live, the opportunities we experience, and the healthcare and education we receive. No matter how rich or poor you are, economic inequality impacts every aspect of your life. With vivid, energetic illustrations, the use of graphs and charts, and tips for how to investigate topics of interest, readers learn the most important issues and ideas in economics to better understand the consequences of inequality. Hadley Dyer is a former children's bookseller and has been involved with the children's book industry for more than 20 years. She has also worked with multiple organizations that promote literacy and reading. On this book, she worked with Mitchell Bernard, who is an associate professor of political science and Joint Center for Asia Pacific Studies, and he provided subject matter related input and guidance. While this is a nonfiction book for a YA audience, I have to say it demystifies a complicated subject, and all of us should be paying more attention to it. So that's the one that I really wanted to share with you all.
Thank you. It sounds like all of the important things that civics did not teach me in high school. So thank you, Sarah. What do we have from Anansi that you're recommending to us?
So this is a bit of an odd one to be like the recommendation I'm giving to all my friends this season. So hear me out. I'm devouring it. It's called Death Interrupted: How Modern Medicine is Complicating the Way That We Die. And it's by Dr. Blair Bigham, who is from Toronto, but recently moved to California. It's actually publishing this month. This is just a fascinating read. It's from the perspective of an ICU doctor on how we make decisions around dying. And Dr. Bigham is this really evocative and entertaining writer. If you like medical dramas, this is actually a great read. It's like my Grey's Anatomy fix while it's not, the new season's not up on Netflix yet. So Dr. Bigham takes you through the beginning of his career as an EMT in ambulances, and then to medical school, through his time working in the emergency room, and finally the ICU. Throughout his career, he's seen a lot of patients and families struggle with making decisions around dying. And he himself has been struggling in how best to help them, because as it turns out, dying has been getting really complicated, even for experts. So today we can keep certain human organs alive almost indefinitely, but at what cost, and when is that no longer desirable? And this book has, perspectives from many end-of-life professionals, including ethicists, social workers, nurses, and doctors who work in palliative care. But he also talks to death historians, which is a thing about the history of dying and different cultural relationships with death, how our society's understanding of dying has changed over time. I just find it so interesting. I love that this isn't a doctor being a supposed expert telling you how you need to feel about dying. You are really going on the journey with him as he does the research and tries to better understand these things. So hopefully my friends won't think I'm too weird when this is what they're getting for Christmas this year.
I don't think it's weird. I love that we're having so many books that we really learn about societal issues from. So thank you for that, Tass. What does ECW have for us for tonight that you're recommending?
So I'm about to do a real 180 after a book about death. And I'm going to recommend The Battle Cry of the Siamese Kitten by Dr. Philip Schott. This is coming out October 11th, and it's the third book in Dr. Philip Schott's beloved Accidental Veterinarian series. I'm so sad that I didn't bring all 3 books because they look so adorable together. Dr. Schott's been a vet for over 30 years. And so, of course, he just has endless stories about his practice. This time we have over 60 news stories featuring some pretty wild critters, from newts and pelicans to a baby snow leopard. But of course, the heart of the book is the dogs and cats that make up just most of a vet's day, but also the weird and wacky and wonderful people who love these pets and bring them in. We've gotten some really lovely reviews recently for this book. Library Journal called it an entertaining, simple book worthwhile for any library. And Booklist said that while some pieces offer lulls and some are sad, it's all just plain entertaining. And I think that that entertainment value is really why I'm recommending it for all of my friends and all of you. Just in like the last hour alone, I've talked about some pretty heavy topics. We've talked about death and reproductive rights and why are there so many billionaires? And just like with the day-to-day like drain of living in unprecedented times, which we still live in, sometimes you just need a break, and these lovely bite-sized stories are perfect for that. So I highly recommend, just like, even if it's for 2 minutes a day, you pick one up, curl up with your kitty, and it's like having dessert with your dinner. So that's The Battle Cry of the Siamese Kitten by Dr. Philip Schott, coming out October 11th.
I think I will recommend The Battle Cry of Siamese Kittens alongside Death Interrupted, so that people can just really jump back and forth in their feelings. Thank you, Ellen. What do we have for Biblioasis that you're recommending, Emily?
So for me, this had to be Case Study by Graham McCrae Burnett, which comes out on November 1st. You might recognize it from your Booker to read lists. Burnett is one of the leading writers in the UK, where he has been twice nominated for the Booker, once for his previous novel, His Bloody Project, and this year for Case Study. I have always really loved literary fiction that explores unreliable narration, especially metafiction. So when we acquired this title, I knew I would really enjoy it. Case Study is a captivating piece of metafiction. It reminds me of Henry James's The Turn of the Screw, but also Odessa Moshfegh's Eileen. Told in a series of alternating notebook entries belonging to multiple narrators, including the author himself, Case Study explores the dark relationship between Colin Braithwaite, a London-based psychiatrist, and his anonymous young patient, who believes that Braithwaite is responsible for her sister's suicide. Burnett's writing is devastating and witty, murderous and charming, and like Nabokov, he is a master of seamlessly moving things in and out of his reader's field of vision. I have put this book in the hands of just about anyone who will listen to me, to friends with wildly different tastes. It is dark, dazzling. It's an interrogation of what it means to tell a story, to be trusted. It absolutely destroys the line between fiction and reality. I blitzed through it in an afternoon a few months ago, and it haunts me still. So I hope you all get the chance to pick it up, really.
It sounds like the perfect fall book. Thank you, Emily, so much. That's awesome. And so our last title that we're going to hear about this evening is from Groundwood. What are you recommending, Catherine?
Okay, I'll take it home. So this season I'm recommending Blanket by Ruth Ohi. This has become one of my favorite books, maybe ever. It's a wordless picture book and it completely warms my heart. And I know it's just past 9, but don't leave, I'll be really quick. So in this story, Kat wakes up one morning and Kat is feeling very gray. Kat wraps up in a blanket and hides. And then Kat's friend Dog comes by and joins Kat under the blanket. Dog listens to Kat's worries and gently they start to have some fun together. So first Dog illuminates the inside of the blanket with a flashlight, and then they make a fort with the blanket and they do shadow puppets on the side. Then Kat comes out from under the blanket and they have a picnic together sitting on top of it. So throughout the story, Kat's sadness slowly starts to lift. It's such a sweet story about the difference that friends can make and also touches lightly on mental health. It also really makes me think of the people in my life who are like Dog to me, that pick me up when I'm feeling down and will come into my blanket fort with me when I just want to curl in on myself. You're probably already familiar with author Ruth Ohi, who has illustrated over 60 picture books. Her picture books have been selected for many major awards and are always widely reviewed. And it's truly an honor to have her on our list this year. And that's Blanket.
Ruth Ohi is the perfect author to round things out with. So thank you so much. Thank you all for your recommendations. I trust you with my bookshelves more than anyone else. So thank you. But my friends, we've come to the end of our Tuesday evening together and we've taken all of your questions. And since we don't have time to answer tonight, we're going to put them in a newsletter and send some of those out to you. Thank you to all of my publishing pals and to the real stars of the show, the booksellers and librarians and the virtual audience in the chat. You guys make working in publishing a dream, the dream job, the best thing we could ever do. And thank you so much for supporting our books, our authors, our illustrators, and for getting us through this pandemic by curating the content that we all really need during these days. We're going to send a short survey around to everybody and a recording of this chat and the video. So when you've got that link, make sure to watch it, share it with your friends, share it with everyone at the stores, with the library. You're going to love it. And we hope to have another event like this in the spring, and maybe it'll be in person or at least hybrid, in-person, virtual. You never know. And since you registered for this one, you'll get all the information about that very soon. So thank you for joining us tonight and have a good night.